residents and the village government. Please give an example of one action you would take personally.
Communication. Well, you know, the website that's been put up has been building, and I think it's great. We've been getting a lot of emails. That's great. One thing I have a problem with is when I go to meetings, we'll have open forum, and you're talking, but I don't think things have really been taken into consideration. I mean, I don't even know if you have a suggestion box. I mean, is that just something so simple and archaic where you could sit there and say, look, this is something, I mean, and you'd be brought up in the meeting where if you raise your hand, you're not picked on. It's, you know, it could be anonymous. I mean, you could sit there, raise your hand, you could be for 15 minutes and no one's going to be picking on you or picking your hand. Is it that? I don't know. Like I said, there's just two sides to this whole thing in Poquott, and I feel like some things aren't given the necessary time consideration that they're just due. As far as communication, I don't know. I think I said the suggestion box. It sounds ridiculous, but I think, for instance, having these questions should be right at the meeting. I don't know what your concerns are. You know, we're here for each other. That's what the board is. I think it's lost its way as far as the whole form of communication. I think that if we're at a meeting, if it takes longer to get our viewpoints out, then we have to sit there and deal with it. You know, we are volunteers, and that's fine, but you know, everybody's voice needs to be heard. And if you have a concern, I think the meeting should be a little more open in the open forum. How's that? How's that?
Great.
Thank you.
Angie, same question. How would you work to improve communications among the residents and the village government? And please give an example.
So to improve communication among the residents and the government, I think what John said, the main place where people do tend to communicate are the meetings. However, not everybody can always make it to the meetings, or not everybody feels comfortable standing up in front of people and asking a question at a meeting. So I think I find the best way for me to communicate is face-to-face. I like to speak to people face-to-face. And I know that if I were to be elected trustee, I would be open to even having, like, you remember when you were in school and your professor had office hours? I think that it would benefit everybody to know that you can come, you can knock on my door, you know. There might be times where it's not necessarily, you know, advisable, because some little boy might be running by in his underwear, but I think a wonderful way to communicate would be to make just phone numbers, emails, addresses open to the village, so that you always know you could come to me if you needed to speak to me. You know, for me to be a messenger for you to speak to the rest of the board and the rest of the government about an issue you may have and you may not feel comfortable speaking up.
Great. Debbie, how would you work to improve communications among the residents and the government? And please give an example.
Well, first and foremost, the tone of the board needs to be changed. This is the crux of how things are done in this village and in every village. Instead of being answered with, okay, next, next, thank you, next, which is what we're getting now, thank you, next, next, next. What needs to be done is for the board/mayor to say, you know what, Beth, you know what, Lita, that's a great idea. Let's think about that. Let's talk about that. That might be a good suggestion. I have been going to meetings since 1991, and this is the only board that has not listened to what the residents have said. Mayor Edelson, Mayor Donovan, everyone has said, you know, Susan, you know, Kathy, that's a great idea. Why don't we think about that? Well, we'll talk about that. Why didn't we think of that? Now, I haven't heard that once, not once. So the tone of the board needs to change. And that's how we get things done, by listening to people and listening. You know, everything starts with a thought. And that's powerful enough. Then we verbalize our thoughts, and they're out in the universe, right? This is the hippie in me. I don't look like a hippie, but I really am. I'm a hippie. I have beads in my bedroom. I don't smoke pot, but I got the beads. And that's what happens. We're all energy. We're all on the same. We're all on the same wavelength. So when there's positivity out there, and we say, you know what? Let's really hear each other. That's how we change the divisiveness. That's how we get back to a peaceful place. We listen, we share ideas, and we listen some more. That's how we do it.
All right, so Debbie, let's start this one with you. We've experienced several emergency situations over the past 5 years. What are your expectations for the role of the village in an emergency? Do you think the village is prepared for the next emergency? And what aspects of preparedness would you seek to improve?
Call John Richardson. He's the firefighter. I mean, what he's had to deal with in the city, oh my goodness, I want him. I'm calling him. I'm calling John. First thing, John, what do we do? What do we tell the residents to do? You know, emergency preparedness is very important. I don't know that there's anything been in place. You know, I'm also very concerned about the bulkhead and the erosion. I was down the beach last night. I mean, it's gotten bad. I need to have more information really to really answer that properly. But having him in there, you know, a New York City firefighter, I'm all for it, I gotta tell you. So, you know, there's my answer.
Great. So, John.
Go, John, go.
Speechless?
Questions were about what do you expect the village to be able to do in an emergency? And do you think the village is prepared to do those kind of things? And what aspects of preparedness would you seek to improve?
To me?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know if she's well, if there's an emergency, it's got to be pretty much, it's going to be either, it's usually weather related, whether it's snow or it's a hurricane. And, you know, I think the village
Fire.
needs to be financially, it needs to be financially secure where there's any money in a case of situation like that. We have to make sure that the budget has the ability to absorb something so big, because we kept on getting hit once, you know, season after season. I know there is some sort of emergency response in place, or there's a procedure in place, and don't know it too well. If there isn't, I'd like to update it. Firsthand, I could probably get on there right away. I'm plenty of people I'm surrounded by all the time. There's also, you know, I bring this up because as far as, you know, we are each other's emergency plan. We really are. Hurricane Sandy, I came home from work, and I'll never forget, Nick and I, we got, you know, trees came down. We were literally locked in there, Washington, and then all on what goes down to Van Brunt. There was no way to get out of the village. You know, there was no way to get into the village. We couldn't touch the other tree on Washington because it was touching wires. And we're sitting down like, Nick, we got to be a way to get in and out of this village if there's an ambulance or something. We went over there, Nick and I, we grabbed our chainsaws, we went down, we just started, Billy Schmidt
And
was
Mike.
with us. We were all just throwing stuff, and I said, if something happens, if there is a fire, someone's got to get through. We got an ambulance through. And we just did it. And then I came back, and sure enough, there was a tree in my car. So there you go.
Payback.
That's what happened. But, you
No
know,
good deed goes
like they say, it
unpunished.
takes
I'm punished.
I mean, how many times, you know, we are our own response, and there's nothing wrong with actually having a central nervous system of the village. You know, I don't like to rely on government for everything. We do everything ourselves. I'd like to be self-sufficient in our village. But what we can't do, that's when the big stuff comes in. I think the village should be ready for it financially, because the village can do whatever it wants as long as it has enough money to do it. But we have to make sure that the money's in place for it, and make sure that there's enough money to absorb it. If it's not there, we're screwed. Thank you.
Great. All right, Angie. Again, we've had several emergency situations. What are your expectations for the role of the village in an emergency? Do you think we're prepared for the next emergency, and what aspects of preparedness would you like to improve?
Well, first, I think the role of the village in an emergency is to, well, it depends on the type of emergency, of course, but you know, if it were a storm and there were trees down, to clear the roads, make sure the roads are clear, so that the emergency vehicles can get in if they need to. There are many different types of emergencies that could occur. I mean, you know, even if people are just down at the beach swimming and someone, you know, goes under and no one around knows CPR, I mean, that's an emergency. These things can just happen in the blink of an eye. So, to be honest with you, again, I'll repeat what I said earlier, in that, you know, there is some, for me to learn, there's a lot for me to learn. I don't know what our emergency preparedness level is. I don't know how prepared we are for what type of emergency there could be. I would make that my job, and this is something that I would like to know, and I would like to jump in, and I would like to find out if I do feel like we are prepared for an emergency. Again, we also, you know, I think one of the major things that we need to do if there's an emergency in Poquott Village is dial 911. You know, we are in the town of Brookhaven, and we are part of the town of Brookhaven. We all pay our Brookhaven taxes. And they have lots of emergency plans in place. So mostly at this point, I really think I would rely a lot on the town of Brookhaven, just because I don't know what our preparedness plan is. But I will make it my job to find out and better it if it needs to be bettered.
Great, thank you. Let's start with you. How would you prioritize infrastructure improvements in the village, and what would be your top priority?
Infrastructure. Number one is safety. If there is a structure that's unsafe, it should not be there. I think, you know, our village hall is a building that would fall under that category, and it you know, it seems to be in a state of not disrepair. It seems to be sound to me. You know, I'll go in and I'll use the bathroom if I need to, and it's open. But prioritizing the infrastructure, I'm sorry, I'm not quite clear on the question. Could you repeat it?
So it's just a general question about what would be your priority for using village resources? Would you repair the roads, lighting, you know, whatever else there is that the village is responsible for?
Right, okay, just general infrastructure. Yeah, right. I mean, roads, of course, are number one, and signs, roads and signs. That leads back to the safety issue. That just keeps us all safe and sane. You know, I was actually riding my bike recently, and someone just blew right through a stop sign, and it was really scary, and it was really dangerous. I've been hit riding my bicycle before by a car, and it's not fun. You know, it's not something that I want to worry about when my kids are out riding their bikes. So we definitely have to maintain the roads and the signs. I would say that's number one.
Great. Debbie, for you, how would you prioritize infrastructure improvements? Is there a top priority for you?
I live on a very dark street, and lighting, I can't see in front of me. I cannot see, and I brought it up so many times. I know from going to meetings that there are problems on Maybeck. I know there are flooding issues. I know there are drainage issues, sliding, you know, speeding issues, lighting, erosion issues, and I agree with Angie 1,000%. Health and safety is number one. Number one. There are potholes where there shouldn't be. I know how to get grants to fix to fix these things. My mother just told me how to get I hate to keep bringing this up, but she's taught me so much. Northport just got a $19 million grant for they have sewers, for their sewers, because they were having a real problem with sewers. I know how to do these things. I've grown up all my life. So if there are problems with infrastructure, I'm on it. I've been making phone calls about all kinds of things in the past few days. I've called the DEC, I've called the tidal wetlands, I've called the Army Corps of Engineers about all kinds of things that are going on in this village that will remain, if hopefully I'll get elected and I'll share them with everybody. But I want to be your voice and tell you about these things. I've learned so much from about infrastructure because of my mother being a trustee and it being very, very important to her as a trustee. And all the phone calls she told me to make. So I've called so many people and I've really gathered a lot of information about how to maintain infrastructures and getting grants to do it.
Excellent.
Great. John?
Can you repeat that question once more? Because I was actually thinking about it as a shoes.
How would you prioritize infrastructure improvements in the village? What would be your top priority?
Infrastructure, well, I would definitely say roads and sewers. Well, especially in the older part of Poquott, it's actually, I'd say it's a big problem. There really are no sewers except at the bottom of the hills. I notice, we just keep on putting roads down on top of roads. If you go down near Walnut Beach, you can literally see a road from my father walked on in 1940. Maybe sometimes we need to just take a step back and find out where the real problem is. You keep on putting the road bigger, water's on the side, we see a lot of erosion. Now we have sewers at the bottom and they're full of dirt every single storm. And then everything's going right down to the beach and the wetlands. So maybe we need someone that knows, that does it for a living. Because you pay somebody to put a road down, they'll put it down. And for the cheapest amount of money. I'd rather see a road stripped and put down properly where we're not going to have a problem. Prioritize, well, we all know that we all hit potholes in the spring. And that's because of the winter, because of plowing and everything else. Maybe there's a solution to help these things out. Well, the money we used from the snow from last year, maybe we could use to help the roads out for next spring. There's ways of doing it. Priority, I think, though, worst condition should be fixed first. I think that also, instead of keep on putting roads down, we need to find a better solution to why they're breaking down so quickly. So we're not spending the money that we're spending and just putting Band-Aids on problems. I think that's what we need to prioritize, to find out where the problem is instead of